This is part 2 of my mini Jeep build. As a recap, it is a roughly half-scale Jeep built for my granddaughters to play with in the woods around the house. It has a 3/4 inch thick plywood body on a square steel frame. It is powered by a 1000 watt electric motor, 36 volt, and a 36 volt battery pack. It doesn't have to go far from the shop, so the electric motor is quite sufficient for how we use it. It travels at around 4 miles an hour, and that seems just about right for the trails out back and the kids' driving abilities. The plywood body might have been strong enough in itself, but I don't think it would have held up in the long term, so I decided to build a steel frame to support the drivetrain and the steering. This part will be a short description of the frame attachment, and the steering system. Here are a couple of quick shots of what it looked like when it was finished. The first picture shows the frame attached to the body. This will help make sense of the frame's form. It supports the live axle at the rear wheel wells and then narrows down at the front, where the front wheels will have to swing on the spindles. Here's the basic shape of the frame. I kept the frame design as simple as possible, no complicated angles or bends. I just narrowed it where it was necessary and welded some gussets on for strength. Using square steel also makes it easier to keep flat and square. The extensions at the front of the frame will be the bumper supports. This shows the body attachment brackets welded to the frame. I used short pieces of leftover square tubing cut at 45 degrees on one end. The 45-degree cut gives access to the carriage bolt dropped through the plywood body and through the bracket. The reason this picture is here is to show how I decided where to locate the height of the steering spindle brackets on the frame. I wanted the Jeep to set level when it was finished. In order to make that happen, I had to know how far below the frame the center line of the rear axle would be. By setting the pillow block bearings on the frame at their location, I was able to know this distance. Knowing the distance below the frame of the rear axle allowed me to calculate the location of the steering spindle bracket on the front axle, making both the front and rear axles the same distance below the frame. This is the assembly of the rear axle. It's a live rear axle, and the pillow block bearings simply bolt through the frame. I did recess the body to accept the bolt heads so that the body would set flat on the frame. In this picture, both the drive sprocket and the brake disc are on the axle, but they are floating at this point and will be located later on. At this point, I want to discuss my choice of wheels, tires, and hubs. I was looking for wheels and tires that would be about the proper scale for the vehicle. I found that relatively cheap 8-inch trailer wheels and tires were real close to the size I was looking for. They were available in a 4-inch by 4-lug bolt pattern that is pretty standard in the go-kart industry also, so the hubs were also available through all the go-kart parts places. Here's a shot of how it ended up looking on the Jeep itself. The brake is a go-kart mechanical disc system. The disc runs on the live rear axle, and the brake caliper is mounted by a bracket on the frame. A 3/8 inch diameter rod was run forward to a brake pedal mounted on the floor of the Jeep. The steering system is an adapted rack and pinion kart system from China. It's amazing for such an economical and complete setup. I believe I only paid $68 for the complete package. I started by building standoff brackets to get it off the body floor. Here's the rack and pinion mounted to those brackets. The tie rods and the tie rod ends were already installed but were too short. I had to extend them to accommodate the proper new length. I cut the rods and welded steel tubing to lengthen them. The package also came with a double universal steering shaft and a steering wheel shaft that attached to it. These both had to be adjusted to work with my setup. Here you can get a good look at the universal shaft after I'd lengthened it and put it in place. Here is the steering wheel shaft being lengthened to fit. The steering wheel was an inexpensive Amazon purchase, and I think the proportions seem to have worked out pretty well. The final system looks good and works really well. That's basically how I built the frame and the steering system. I'm going to end part 2 now. Thanks for watching.